parked on that side, just open up that door right there. Jane can come in through that door. Yeah, just open up the door that's right. Yeah, when you're walking toward right now. Shabbat Shalom. I'm just going to make sure that we are live on everything here. Shabbat, there we go. Shabbat Shalom, everyone, here at Temple Shalom, and those of you who are joining us on Facebook, and those of you joining us on YouTube, and those of you who are joining us on templeshalom.com. We're happy to see everybody with us on this Shabbat, in the middle of the holiday of Sukkot. Sukkot began a little earlier this week, and we'll be finishing off Sukkot this upcoming week with our service on Shmini Atzeret on Tuesday morning. You can join us as well Tuesday evening for Simchat Torah. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but now we begin as we welcome in Shabbat. Bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam, bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Bim 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 bam, bim bam, bim bim bam, bim 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 bam. On page 128 in your Siddur. Second song on the page, Ma Yafeh Hayom Shabbat Shalom. What a beautiful day it is, a Shabbat of peace. Ma Yafeh Hayom Shabbat Shalom. Ma Yafeh Hayom Shabbat Shalom. Ma Yafeh Hayom Shabbat Shalom, Ma Yafeh Hayom. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Page 120 in your Siddur. As we light our Shabbat candles, and in the midst of this week that we call Sukkot, but we also call Zman Simchatenu, which means the time of our joy. We double our joy. Usually we double our joy because we light 2 candles. Shabbat has extra joy, extra angels to protect us, extra beauty to it. We have that for Shabbat, but we get maybe a 3rd level because it's Sukkot as well. We don't light a 3rd candle, but we do have that extra special feeling of both the Shabbat and of the Yom Tov as we light our Shabbat candles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליקnem של Shabbat. On page 131, actually 130, we begin welcoming in Shabbat with these words of Lechu Neranina, let us sing joyfully to God. Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina al Adonai. Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina al Adonai. Naria, Naria, Litzuri Shinu, Tekadma Panav B'todah. Naria, Naria, Litzuri Shinu, Bizmirot Naria Lo. Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina al Adonai. Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina al Adonai. He said that this is Zman Simchatenu, Sukkot, the time of our joy, in the middle of Psalm 96, which we find on page 131. Yismachu Hashamayim, the heavens will be happy. V'tagel haaretz, and the land will be happy also. Yiram hayam, the sea will sing joyfully as well, and all that fill it, all that fill the earth and the sea and the sky will sing joyfully at this time of Zman Simchatenu, the time of our great joy and happiness. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Eloh. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Eloh. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. The rabbis speak to us and tell us that we have a holiday called Shmini Atzeret. It comes up on Tuesday. It starts Monday night, goes till Tuesday night. Shmini Atzeret. Shmini means the 8th day of, and Atzeret means Atzeret. That's what it means. We don't know really the origins of the word. It means, usually it's translated as like holy gathering or special gathering. It had something to do with coming together. And there are 7 days of Sukkot and then an 8th day of Atzeret. The Talmud describes it in a way, and some of the rabbis in the Midrash, a way of, it says that if a king were to throw a party, as ancient kings would do, if the king threw a 7-day long party, because that's what ancient kings did, you don't just throw a 1-day party. Why don't you throw a 1-day party if you're an ancient king? It took people more than 1 day to get to the party. You can't have them travel 3, 4, 5 days to come to your party, and you throw a 1-day party. It's not a good idea. So they would throw parties that would last for a week, right? And the rabbis of old, they talk about, well, Sukkot, it's like a 7-day party of happiness, with joy with God. And then the king loved the party so much, the king says, why don't you stay for one more day? We'll party for one more day. And this is the extra day with God. And so those who want to stay for a little extra time, a little extra kedusha, a little extra holiness would stay. And the rabbis of the Talmud said those who were tzaddikim, who were righteous people, they're the ones who would stay. Those who were yishrei lev, who were straightforward of heart, good-hearted people, they would stay. And so the ones who were righteous, the ones who were good-hearted people, they would stay for the extra day. If we look at the bottom of page 132, we see the words, Or zaru ala tzaddik, light is sown for the tzaddikim, for the righteous, ul yishrei lev, and for those who are straightforward of heart, good-hearted people, simcha. The same idea that the rabbis talked about, those who would stay for Shmini Atzeret, they're the ones who are blessed with light and with happiness in this Zman Simchatenu, our days of happiness. Or zarua latzadik u'yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua latzadik u'yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua latzadik u'yishrei lev simcha. U'yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua latzadik u'yishrei lev simcha. U'yishrei lev simcha. Lai 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 lai. We read together from Psalm 98 at the bottom of 133. A psalm, sing to Adonai a new song, for God has worked wonders. God's right hand, God's holy arm has won God victory. Adonai manifested God's victory, has displayed God's triumph in the sight of the nations. God was mindful of God's steadfast love and faithfulness toward the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth beheld the victory of our God. Raise a shout to Adonai, all the earth. Break into joyous songs of praise. Standing at the foot of the mountain, Mount Sinai, our ancestors broke into song of joy as they received the words, as our souls stood there with them. Page 135, Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, sing joyfully to our God. V'hishtachavu lahar kodsho, and we bow down at God's holy mountain. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu Romemu Adonai Elohim, v'hishtachavu le'har kodsho. We continue page 138 as we welcome in the concept of the Shabbat bride, welcome in the beauty of Shabbat. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mikabela. Adoni likrat kala, pnei Shabbat mikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmi'anu el hamichad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, v'shemu tiferet v'letchila. Lecha dodi דודי לקראת כלה, שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, בראש מקדם משוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבת קיבה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Verse number 5. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי בעורף פני אורי, שדברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נדלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. We rise, we come to the last verse as we face the door, as we welcome in the image of the Shabbat bride. בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, טוב תמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. We can all be seated. On page 140, Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat. There are a couple of interesting traditions that happened this particular week. In some congregations, there's a tradition that the service actually starts right here on page 140. So if you're using this Siddur, if you're using another Siddur, it's probably a different page, but it starts with Psalm 92. There's a tradition in some congregations that you skip all of Kabbalat Shabbat, you skip all of Lecha Dodi, because you don't need the joy of welcoming in Shabbat, because it's already Sukkot, which is a time of joy. So you don't need the prayers to welcome in Sukkot and to welcome in Shabbat, because if you're already in a time of joy and a time of holiday of Sukkot, why would you need to welcome in Shabbat? There's another tradition that says Chol HaMoed, these are the middle days of Sukkot, and so it doesn't have the level of the first day and the last day of Sukkot of being a Yom Chag, a holiday day. It's one of the middle days, and so we still need to elevate the Shabbat by bringing in the Kabbalat Shabbat prayers. So for those of you who are on the same page that I am, which was we needed to elevate Shabbat, we did Kabbalat Shabbat. For those of you who follow the other custom, nothing that happened before happened. We're starting right here with Psalm 92. Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, Tov lehodot la'Adonai, u'lezamer le'shimcha elyon, u'lezamer le'shimcha elyon. Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, Tov lehodot la'Adonai, u'lezamer le'shimcha elyon, u'lezamer le'shimcha elyon. Hadi b'boker chasdecha, emunatecha baliלות, alei asor ve'alei navel, alei higayon v'chinot. Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, Tov lehodot la'Adonai, u'lezamer le'shimcha elyon, u'lezamer le'shimcha elyon. Simchtani Adonai b'po'olecha, v'ma'aseh yadecha aranim. Ma gadlu ma'asecha Adonai me'od, shvotecha mizmor shir leyom haShabbat tov lehodot la'Adonai ulezamer leshivcha elyon ulezamer leshivcha elyon ulezamer leshivcha elyon ulezamer leshivcha elyon. When the rabbis added in Kabbalat Shabbat into the service about 500 years ago or so, they went back to look in the Talmud and see if there were things that they might have suggestions that they might add. And in the Talmud, they found an idea that there was from Psalm 93, the one right after the Psalm of Shabbat. It's on page 141 in your Siddur. That this psalm would be a great way to end Kabbalat Shabbat because it had been mentioned in the Talmud that this psalm really sums up the idea of God's completion of creation. And since Shabbat comes at the completion of creation, this would be a wonderful psalm. The rabbis who added Kabbalat Shabbat 500 years ago said, you know, those old guys way back when, they gave us this psalm, said it's a psalm that summarizes this idea of the completion of creation. We should maybe finish our Kabbalat Shabbat, our preparation for Shabbat, with this psalm. So let's read it together in English on page 141. Adonai is sovereign. God is robed in grandeur. Adonai is robed. God is girded with strength. The world stands firm. It cannot be shaken. Your throne stands firm from of old. From eternity you have existed. The ocean sounds, Adonai. The ocean sounds its thunder. The ocean sounds its pounding. Above the thunder of the mighty waters, more majestic than the breakers of the sea is Adonai, majestic on high. Your decrees are indeed enduring. Holiness befits your house, Adonai, for all time. Bringing our Kabbalat Shabbat to a close, we make our way to our Ma'ariv evening service, separated with the words of Chatzi Kaddish on page 144. Yitkada v'yitkadash shemei rabba Belmad yivrach Yerutev yamlich malchutei B'chayechun uv'yomechon Uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala ba'agala Uv'izman ka'ariv V'yimiru Amen Ehei shmei rabba mevorach Le'olam olam me'al maya Yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudesha b'richu ve'elam min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiron be'alma v'yimeru Amen. We turn to page 146 as we rise for Baruch Hu. Lai 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed. We can all be seated. As we turn to page 149, a prayer for creation in the middle of the page. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister? Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim, praised are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Page 150. A prayer giving thanks for Torah. Tuesday night, we will finish reading the Torah. Tuesday night, we will begin reading the Torah. We really never finish reading the Torah. We never really begin reading the Torah. We are in the middle of a cycle, and even if it's the first time that we read it, well, our ancestors read it. And even if it's the last time we read it, if this is our last year on earth, well, our descendants will read it. So we are just in the middle of a cycle of reading Torah. A Torah of God giving love to us in the world. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, its laws and precepts. When we lie down and when we rise up, we will deeply think about all of its words and all of its commandments. We will rejoice with your Torah forever. It is the length of our days. It is indeed our life. Praise to you, O God, who loves your people Israel. Havat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, Yishofeinu b'tumeinu, Nasiach b'chukecha, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. Never remove your love from us, Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai, praised are you, O God. Ohev amo Yisrael, who loves your people Israel. Page 152 and 153. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod, Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. We'll read together a poetic translation of those words on page 155. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you need rest. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. Standing on the parted shore, as we read on page 157. We still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, and that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. There is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. As we move forward through the Sea of Reeds on page 158, like our ancient ancestors, we sing the words, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, who could be like you, O God, who led us out of Egypt. Of course, we celebrate that holiday with Pesach, but here in the middle of Sukkot, we celebrate that wandering through the desert, those 40 years. I don't know if we celebrate that it was 40 years, but we celebrate the freedom that we already were feeling as we made our way away from Egypt in our convoluted pathway. But the Torah tells us that our ancestors sang these words at the Sea of Reeds. I have a sense that these words were sung at other times over the course of the 40 years. We don't have a chronological story that tells us of all 40 years. We have the beginning and then we have the end, and there's a whole big few decades that are missing in the middle. And I think that these words were probably repeated many times during that decade, each time that God seemed to rescue the people once they were not believing that God would take care of them. Moses, where's our food? Moses, where's our water? Moses, why are we in the middle of the desert? Moses, 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 why is everything going wrong? I somehow think that either these words or similar words were probably sung in joy, saying, who can be like you, God, who even one more time has rescued us with your splendor and your wonder, all your amazement in the world. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot, osei felech, osei felech. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot, Osei felech, Osei felech. Malchutecha, Raú banecha, Bochi hayam nishti Moshe uMiriam, Ze'imi anu ve'omu, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. As we turn to page 160, we ask God to lie us down in peace and to make us rise again tomorrow to life, to spread a shelter of peace over us, to give us shelter in that shelter of peace, to protect us from enemy and illness and war and famine and sorrow, and keep us far from wrongdoing, to guard our going out and our coming in now and forever. Praised are you, Adonai, who spreads the shelter of peace over us, over your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu L'Shalom, V'ha'amidenu Shomreinu L'Chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu L'Shalom, V'ha'amidenu Shomreinu L'Chaim. Ushmor Tzitenu Uvoinu L'chaim u'shalom Li'ata ve'ad olam. Laila 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 That indented paragraph near the bottom of the Hebrew. Ushmor tzitenu uvoinu l'chaim u'shalom v'etza ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu L'Shalom, V'ha'amidenu Shomreinu L'Chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu L'Shalom, V'ha'amidenu Shomreinu L'Chaim. Shomreinu L'Chaim, Shomreinu L'Chaim. The people of Israel will keep Shabbat. Observing Shabbat throughout the ages is a covenant for all time. It is a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day God ceased from work and was refreshed. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledotam berit olam. Benu b'nei Yisrael Oti le'olam, oti le'olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledotam berit olam. U'v'yom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledotam berit olam. U'v'yom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledotam berit olam. On most nights we would continue on page 164, but tonight we will not continue on page 164. We're going to turn in our Siddur all the way back to page 468. 468. On this Shabbat, in the middle of Sukkot, we use the Sukkot Amidah, or the Festival Amidah, which has some additions for the holiday of Sukkot that we'll add into our prayers tonight. The Amidah, this is a good advertising moment, I think. Not this coming Sunday, but the following Sunday, October 3rd, at 11 a.m. You want to be here at Temple Shalom, and I believe we're also going to be broadcasting on YouTube and on the Temple website. For the first in my series this year, they never taught me that in Hebrew school. 5 different classes this year, like every year, 5 classes. The first one is called the Amidah, your FaceTime call with God. So if you want to understand the Amidah a little bit better, rabbinical school is a great answer to that. But if you don't have time, like 5 years for rabbinical school after you have your bachelor's degree, I recommend 1 hour on Sunday, October 3rd, 11 a.m. to 12 noon, to learn a little bit more about the Amidah, your FaceTime call with God, how to use the Amidah as a tool to walk a spiritual path in the direction of God. It'll be a great hour, I promise, and you'll learn a lot. It'll be a wonderful time, so you can join us there. On a typical Shabbat, there are 3 blessings of praise, a blessing of Shabbat, and then 3 blessings of thanksgiving. During the week, there are 3 blessings of praise, 13 blessings of requests, and 3 blessings of thanksgiving. During a festival like Sukkot, 3 blessings of praise, 1 blessing of the festival and Shabbat, when it's Shabbat, and then 3 blessings of thanksgiving. So if you didn't memorize that, I'm going to go over that again at the beginning of the class on that Sunday. But tonight we say those blessings of praise, and then out loud together we'll say the blessings of the holiday, and then we'll do the blessings of thanksgiving silently. And so we rise, page 468. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha. 470. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot Umevi Geula Livnei V'Nehem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magin Baruch Atah Adonai Magin Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei Hakol Atah Rav Lehoshia Morid Hatal Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed Mechayei Hakol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofeh Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato B'Shenei Afar Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot Umido Melach Melech Meimit Umechayei Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman Atah L'chayot Hakol Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayei Hakol. The top of 474. Atah Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh U'Kedoshim B'chol Yom Yahalelucha Selah Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. We continue on 478. Atah v'chartanu mikol ha'amim ahavta otanu v'ratzita banu v'romamtanu mikol ha'lishonot v'gideshtanu b'mitzvotecha v'keravtanu malkinu la'avodatecha v'shimcha hagadol hakadosh aleinu karata. You have chosen us in love and favor by making us holy through your mitzvot and drawing us close to your service, that through us your great and holy name may become known in all the earth. V'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu ba'ahava Shabbatot u'lemenucha u'moadim l'simcha chagim uzmanim l'sason et yom haShabbat hazeh Ved Yom Chag HaSukkot hazeh zman simchatenu, mikra kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim. In your love, Adonai, our God, you have given us Shabbatot of rests, feasts of gladness and seasons of joy. This Shabbat, this festival day of Sukkot, this season of our thanksgiving and season of our happiness, if we translate it directly, to unite in worship and recall the Exodus from Egypt. We continue on page 480. Eloheinu v'Elo Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Ya'aleh v'Yavo v'Yizacher zichronenu v'zichron kol amcha beit Yisrael lefanecha l'tova l'cheinu l'chesed l'rachamim l'chayinu l'shalom b'yom chag HaSukkot hazeh. Our God and God of our ancestors, be mindful of your people Israel and recall our merit for good and grace, and in loving kindness and compassion for life and peace on this festival of Sukkot. We say Amen at the end of each of these. Zochreinu Adonai Eloheinu bo l'tova, ufokdeinu bo livracha, v'hoshienu bo l'chaim. This day remember us for well-being. This day bless us with your nearness. This day, help us to a fuller life. We continue on page 482. V'aseinu Adonai Eloheinu et brichat moedecha l'chaim u'shalom l'simcha l'sason kasher atzita v'amarta levarcheinu Eloheinu v'la'avoteinu v'imotenu v'tzevinu v'chatenu kadshenu v'mitzvotecha v'teinchalkenu v'toratecha saveinu mituvecha v'zofchenu b'shuatecha v'daher libeinu l'avdecha be'emet v'adchilenu Adonai Eloheinu ba'avav ratzon b'simcha u'v'sason Shabbat u'moadei kodshecha v'yismechu v'cha Yisrael mekadshei shemecha baruch ata Adonai mekadesh haShabbat v'Yisrael v'hazmanim. Bestow upon us the blessing of your holy festival, and may we so celebrate them as to be worthy of your blessing. Our God and God of our ancestors, make us holy with your mitzvot, and let your Torah be our way of life. May our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. Let your Shabbatot and holy festivals remain our heritage. Let us celebrate them with love and favor and joy, so that Israel, hallowing your name, may have cause to rejoice. We praise you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat, the house of Israel, and the festivals. We continue silently through the end of page 492 with the prayers on the right side on the even pages, or the meditations on the odd pages. page 492. You Luratzon Imrefi Vegyon Lifanecha Adonai Tsuri V'goali Adonai Tsuri V'goali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart, may they all be acceptable unto you, Adonai, my rock and my Redeemer. Adonai, my rock and my Redeemer. We take a moment to think of those who are in need of healing. We ask God to bring healing, refuah shlema, complete healing. Bimhera v'yaminu, may it come very quickly. For Yishav Zaza, Carrie Schillinger, Betsy Appel, Robert Oppenheim, Carrie Susser, Brian Zabel, Sylvia Chuk, Ruvain Ben Sipora, Stephen Sharrow, Chaim Mordechai Ben Shmuel Yisaschar, Rosalind Weinberg, Irene Lambert, Moshe Ben Avraham, John Mitchell, Alan Davidson, the Weiss family, the Markinson family, the Schwartz family. We also ask for healing for all those who suffer from the COVID-19 virus. Here in the United States, the currently reported 9,850,087 cases and rising. In Israel, the 65,595 cases and decreasing. And worldwide, the 18,658,058 cases, unfortunately, holding steady. Are there any other names for healing? Thank you. Any others, names for healing? For all those in need and for all those we've named. Page 371 in our Siddur. We join together in words of prayer for healing. Mishebera Avoteinu Mikor HaBracha Leimoteinu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, need of healing with refuah shleima, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. We are in the middle of Sukkot. We are quickly approaching Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. We call Sukkot, as we mentioned, Zman Simchatenu, the time of our happiness. We are commanded to be happy. Now, there are different ways of being commanded to be happy. Of course, there's the musical way. Here's a little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry. Be happy. For when you worry, your face will frown. That will bring everybody down. Don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry. Be happy. Etc., right? We have the musical way. We also have the words of Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who said, one of the great Hasidic masters of a couple of hundred years ago, who said, mitzvah gadol, he probably said it in a more Ashkenazi way, so I'll say it in a more Ashkenazi way. Mitzvah gadola lihyot b'simcha tamid. If I were in modern Hebrew, I would say mitzvah gadola lihyot b'simcha tamid. But he would have said it, mitzvah gadola lihyot b'simcha tamid. It means, it is a great mitzvah, a giant mitzvah, to always be happy. It leads to a question. 9,850,087 Americans with COVID. 705,235 COVID deaths in America. 65,595 cases of COVID active in Israel. 7,611 deaths from COVID in Israel. 18,658,058 cases of COVID around the world. 4,750,391 COVID deaths reported around the world. It's a great mitzvah to be happy always. How can I hear these numbers? Almost 19 million people worldwide with this virus, and that's certainly an undercount by several million. Almost 5 million people dead around the world from this pandemic. That's absolutely certain an undercount. And I'm supposed to listen to Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, mitzvah gedola lihyot b'simcha tamid. It's a great mitzvah to be happy all the time. How can I be happy when I hear numbers like that of people suffering, of people dying? Zman simchatenu, the time of our happiness. That's the name of the holiday that we're in the middle of. It's not just Chag HaSukkot, the festival of Sukkot, the festival of booths. It's Zman Simchatenu. It's the time of our great joy. How many of you inside the building right now are gratefully and joyfully wearing your mask? None of us. We're wearing it because we're protecting each other, but we're not grateful for it. We're not joyful and happy about it. We're not grateful and joyful to have restrictions because we're trying to protect others and protect ourselves. So how can we say mitzvah gedola lihyot b'simcha tamid? It's a great mitzvah to be happy all the time, and this is zman simchatenu, the time of our happiness, when we live in the time of a horrible global pandemic. It's difficult, but the answer is we can be, because being happy doesn't preclude us from remembering those who have died, and being happy doesn't preclude us from recognizing the destruction in our world and recognizing the suffering of those who have this horrible disease. And the reason is this. When Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav said it's a great mitzvah to be happy all the time, he never expected that every one of us would be happy at every single moment, but that we should move ourselves in the direction of happiness. And how do we do that? Another great Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav saying, Kol ha'ulam kulo gesher tsar ma'od, v'ha'ikar lo lefached klal. The entire world is a narrow bridge. V'ha'ikar, it often gets translated as the important thing, but the ha'ikar means the essence of the matter. Ha'ikar lo lefached klal. Don't be afraid at all. When there's a narrow bridge that we need to cross, and it's one of those suspension bridges that swings back and forth, and there's those ropes in the slats, and we're not quite certain that we're going to make it to the other side. The pegs that are holding that rope behind me don't look very sturdy, and the rest of the bridge in front of me doesn't look that great either. But Rabbi Nachman said, don't be afraid, cross the bridge. We're left to ask the question, so Rabbi Nachman, don't be afraid, so what's on the other side of the bridge? And Rabbi Nachman would have replied to us, mitzvah gedola lihiot b'simcha tamid. It's a great mitzvah to be happy all the time. What's on the other side of that bridge? That's where the happiness is. We need to cross the bridge. Whether it's COVID, whether it's the person who annoys us at work, whether it's the person who annoys us that's our next door neighbor, the family member who drives us crazy, the workload that we are looking at that can't be fixed, the politicians that we disagree with, the politicians we agree with, but then we disagree with, whatever it might be. Whatever horrible thing there might be in our world, Rabbi Nachman would say the whole world is that narrow bridge. And if you refuse to cross the bridge, you'll never get back to the happiness. How do we cross the bridge? How do we create happiness? Well, we might find a suggestion from one of the great modern thinkers, Martin Buber. One of our we might call him a modern day prophet. Buber said that when people come to you for help, that you should not turn them away with pious words saying, have faith and God will take care of everything. How many times I've heard that and I think, this is absurd. Martin Buber says, act instead as if there were no God, as though there were only one person in the whole world who could help. And that one person is you. And if we can help that other person who is in need, instead of telling them, go pray, God will take care of it all. No, we need to act as if there is no God and pray as if there is a God. If we can act to help someone else who I know is standing at that narrow bridge and they're afraid, if we can help them not be afraid to cross that bridge that is the whole world for them, then we can bring them to the place of happiness. And for us, we will achieve the mitzvah, gedolah, the great mitzvah to be happy. And we'll also help them achieve the great mitzvah to be happy. How do we bring happiness into the world? By helping one other person. Even during the time of a pandemic, by helping one other person. How do we help? Oh, I don't know. Visit the sick. Welcome the stranger. Celebrate with the bat mitzvah girl or with the groom and the bride. Welcome a stranger into the community. Give some food to the food bank. Smile at the person at the other end of the check stand when you walk through the store. Say thank you. Say please. All of those things put a smile on someone else's face. And that's the beginning of happiness. This is Zman Simchatenu, the time of our great happiness. During this Sukkot, may we all be inspired to find that happiness for ourselves and to give it to one person. Okay, and then another. And maybe the next day another. But if we can strive each day to bring happiness to one person, imagine how wonderful we could make the world. When we, at the end of our service, when we walk out into our sukkah and we drink a little wine and we eat a little challah and we'll even might shake a little lulav. We traditionally don't shake a lulav on Friday night, but if it's your only chance, we'll make sure you can shake a lulav on Friday night and the etrog. When we do, may that sukkah, that shelter of peace, inspire us to bring peace and happiness to everyone else who surrounds us. I pray that that will be our gift that we receive and the gift that we give on this festival of Sukkot. We continue as we turn in our Siddur to page 586. And as we do, we will rise for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורר עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. Page 590. כי המלכות שלך היא עולמי תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד. We can be seated. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. In our yard sites this week, we recall the memories of Lena Bartner, Hal Blonstein, Isidore Sparrow, Renee Graham, Dave Douglas, Jacob Ben-Amu, Bernice Albin, Elsa Sheets, Max Gordon, Saul Schmemmerman, Donovan Barnes, Jacob Heller, Jonas Silverstein, Philip Cook, Adina Gang, August Chernow, Leonard Levy, Diane Page. We recall the memories of all those who have lost the COVID-19 virus, 705,235 Americans, 7,611 Israelis, 4,750,391 precious souls worldwide. We also mark the recent passing just a couple of days ago of Susan Zimmerman, sister-in-law of Beth Zimmerman, and the passing earlier today of Markita Zadorova, mother of Ivan Zador, who passed away a little less than 12 hours ago at the age of 98 years old. She will be buried in the new Jewish cemetery in Prague, where she grew up and where she was a survivor of the Holocaust. Her family, there'll be more information after Shabbat coming about her funeral there and about comforting the Zador family as well. Yehu zichronam levracha, may their memories be a blessing. We ask mourners to rise and those whose custom it is to stand with them. As we turn to page 598, as we recite the words of Kadishatam. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, v'chaye chon uvyome chon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Ehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya, Yitbarach, Vishtabach, Yitpa'ar, Vitromam, Vitnaseh, Vitadar, Vit'aleh, Vit'alal, Shemei Dukudisha Barichu, Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Da'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen, V'hei shalama rabba min shemaya, V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen, Oseh shalom b'mromav, Huya aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. V'imru, amen. We can all be seated. Just a couple of quick announcements. Or Judy, do we have some announcements? We'll invite Judy Oppenheim from our board of directors to come join us on the Bima. Just a few announcements of things coming up in the next couple of weeks. And the next couple of days for that.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Rabbi, for an inspiring service. There are many ways that you can support Temple Shalom. Dues, contributions, and the Kol Nidre pledges are our greatest source of financial support. We're looking for 100% participation in the Kol Nidre pledge, even if you can only pledge $1. Any amount is welcome. 2 services are coming up on Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. Shemini Atzeret service with Yisker starts at 9:30 a.m. and Simchat Torah starts at 6 p.m. Register online for the services. Adult education class with Rabbi J, Sunday, October 3rd from 11 to 12. The first of the year for They Never Taught Me That in Sunday School. Register online. A men's club minyan and program Sunday, October 17th at 9:30 a.m. Temple Shalom member Jonathan Cohen will tell us about being a Jewish gold winner in the 21st century. Check online in the weekly email for updates for this event. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. After one closing song, we'll join together in the Sukkah for a little Kiddush and Motzi and for a little Lulav for those who have not had the opportunity. Page 664. The very bottom of the page, a little melody that comes from our Hashkivenu prayer, but its words are appropriate for this festival of Sukkot. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei Sukkat Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Moadim l'simcha. Happy middle days of Sukkot. For those of you on Facebook and on YouTube and on TempleShalom.com, we'll say goodnight to all of you. For the rest of us here, we'll see you in just a moment out in the Sukkah. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.